Well, I think it's good to start at the beginning as far as my knowledge of this location, this property. And the way I understand it, it was homesteaded in the 1870s by a man by the name of Freiberg, Herman Freiberg from the Sheboygan area. And he came in and developed a big sawmill operation on this property and built this structure here, which is now our home, for the lumberjacks and the men that worked in that big mill. So he operated for maybe 10 years, and then for various reasons he ceased his lumber camp operation, and it was used as a general store for a few years, the main building here, and a few private families rented for a few years, and then eventually the Freiberg family sold it to John Paulson. And he was an islander that was getting into the tourist business, and they turned the boarding house into West Harbor Hotel. So that was in 1900 that they opened their doors to the traffic as it was in those years, coming up by the steamers or schooners from Chicago or wherever. And they'd stop in and spend maybe 2 or 3 weeks in the establishment with American plan, 3 meals a day type of thing. And that went on until Mr. Paulson had the misfortune of losing his wife in the business and kind of was disgruntled over continuing in business, and then sold it to his niece, Martha Sorensen. So Martha took over the hotel. They never closed their doors. It was just primarily seasonal for the summer tourists from Wisconsin, Illinois, wherever. And they continued to expand on their food reputation. And also the good fishing was a big item back in those days. And then some of the Chicago people, they enjoyed just sitting on the screened-in porch, listening to the frogs chirp or the waves roll on the beach, whatever it was, and play bridge or whatever, and then enjoy waiting for the dinner bell so they could go in and enjoy Martha's good homemade cooking. So that was about the time in the 20s where my mother came into the picture slightly, and she was a island-born girl, Cornell, and as well her dad, my grandpa, Bert Cornell, was born and raised on the island, so well established in the island community. But then when, so she worked here at the hotel for the mid-20s for a number of years, and learned the ins and outs of taking care of the public and what things they were looking for when they come to vacation on Washington Island in those days. So then tough times caught up to everybody, and I believe that was the Depression days and early 30s, late 20s and early 30s, where my mom found her way to Chicago area for work because there wasn't much happening anywhere at that point. But so that's what she did, and then left the message with the Sorensens that if and when anything ever came up where they would be interested in selling the resort, my folks would have been interested to see if they could help out in that area. So that is indeed then what happened. The Sorensens continued until 1947, and that was the time then when my folks became aware of the fact it was for sale. And on one of the trips up to visit the grandparents, they made the deal, and for what it was worth, it was $500 down and a land contract they set up with Martha and Gents to take over the resort. And it was still called West Harbor Hotel at that point. So then our family, I was only 2 years old, which is a few years back now, and I grew up with the surroundings of the fishing and the swimming and the sailing and all these families that continued to come up after my parents took over the resort. And continued the American plan, the room and board, and the homemade cooking. So my mother's food gained as much credence as Martha's had in the past, and continued until a later point when the meals began to be less of an issue with the resort. Then then moved into a period where people got more restless in my eyes, I guess, from what I feel, and they didn't want to be tied down to the dinner bell and coming in around the table. So eventually we phased out of the food business, and when my wife and I took over in 1971, it was kind of a limited meal schedule. We did 2 or 3 meals, dinners a week, and then breakfast every day. And then finally in 1989, we actually did away with the food part of our business. But throughout all those years, the people, the faces kind of remained constant and kept coming back. We developed more of a housekeeping cottage business for those old families. So then we shared the property with those people coming from Chicago and Minnesota and all points. And again, the attraction being the quietness of the island and the sunsets on the beach and the campfire and the sing-alongs down at the beach. And the fishing certainly was always a part of just to go out in a little rowboat and catch your limit of bass or perch, and those were the things that so many people, as I was growing up, left their mark on me, my mind as to why they were here. And even to this very day, I just feel that so many of those same things are being sought by so many people in this world. And this island, and I think our property, continues to provide a lot of that quietness that people are searching for. And I have no thoughts of ever changing anything or in a major way, and hopefully some of my children, I have 6 children and they're kind of all trying to grow up in different areas right now, but hopefully at some point some of those children will continue the things that we have established here, and hope to continue as long as possible. And that's about it.